and welcome to Sounds Heal Podcast. I am your host, Natalie Brown. We will continue to dive into conversations about sound healing, sound therapy, and using sound for health and wellness. I appreciate your feedback on the previous podcast with Michael Bettine, who I met at the Gong Summit in Connecticut in July. I was also lucky to see him just shortly after our podcast. His Gong meditation here in Des Moines, Iowa. It was really wonderful to reconnect with him. It's honestly been so fun following the journey of the people that I met at the Gong Summit to see what they're doing and bringing the information, bringing the gongs, bringing this power of sound into their communities. So the connections continue, including with my podcast guest today. I met Gail Jackson at the Gong Summit as well. And I was really inspired by her vibe, her energy, and the way she expresses herself. Gail lives in Alaska. She's a drum circle facilitator. She leads gong baths and sound meditations. She's really on a path of learning, just immersion, and continuing to chase the things that inspire her in life, specifically through sound and spirituality, as well as bringing what she's learned back to her community and just helping as many people as she can. So please enjoy my conversation with Gail Jackson. So I guess I want to start at the beginning, your beginning, and how did sound come into your life? What's one of your early memories of sound and its impact on you?
For me, I would say something that, as far as sound goes, that really sparked my awareness. I attended a drum circle facilitation training in Hawaii under Arthur Hall, and we have what's called late night. That is unfacilitated playing of drums, different percussion instruments, and going into the early morning hours. And we're out by a few yards away from the ocean. We have the trees moving in the breeze, and it's magic. And listening to different people play, you start to hear other instruments that aren't even there. You're, really into the groove. You're feeling the drums or whatever instrument you're playing. And Remo makes a Bahia drum. No, it's they used to call it not so loud, but now they're called comfort drums. And when those drums were playing, I was hearing a bass guitar. I was hearing someone like humming. And it was magic. I had to open my eyes to look around, like I know I just heard a bass guitar, but there's no bass guitarist there. And that's where it's just those magical moments when you are totally into the music, the rhythm, that your mind, your heart, your total being is just open to the moment. And that's when the magic happens. That was my first true awareness of the magic of sound. It's more than the visual. It's more than what you're doing, the tactical. It's more than that. It's a deeper sense of awareness.
And what got you to that point? What took you to that circle at that time? What inspired you to play the drums?
What inspired me, I had always, not always, but I had played percussion at a church that I had gone to when I was living in the lower 48, and then stopped going to church. And then I got another spiritual calling when I moved here to Alaska, and I was singing at a spiritual center, And then that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to be in the music department playing music. So I started playing the congas and different percussion instruments. And one of the other people in the music department told me about Edwina Tyler. She's a master djembe player who I've never heard of. So I went home to Google her, and I found a drum camp down in California, and it was the Women's International Drummers, Born to Drum, and they do all different kind of Middle Eastern, Venezuelan. They teach you how to play the shakere. There's a woman that teaches the dunes. So I went and started playing, and it was just really welcoming. The facilitators were open to answering questions and showing different things, and I had a really good time, and I wanted to go back the next year. And what I had found out was when I Googled Edwina, I wanted to go to her class. So I missed it the first day, and then that Sunday I found her class, and we were playing. She's a very inspirational motivator when she facilitates drumming. She teaches African drumming. And I started hearing strange noise in the room, and I looked around, and there were women crying in the class. And that's where I first learned the power of the drum. And during that time, I was taking classes to become a spiritual licensed practitioner, which is we hold people in the spiritual sense, not a spiritual sense, but we do prayer support for people when they're going through something or when things are going well, just keeping that energy lifted. And I had a really good time, and I wanted to go back again. I went back the next year, and the next year was when I was going for my panels and taking my written exam. And during the meditation, after the whole licensure process was done, it came to me that I could facilitate drumming circles. So again, I went home, I Googled drumming circles, and I found Arthur Hall Village Music Circles. And that next year, because I wanted to know if I really wanted to do it.
Right.
So I was doing a few drumming circles, community drumming circles, and then the next year I ended up going to Hawaii for the Village of Music Drumming Circles facilitation camp. And there I met people from all over the world, experienced my first late night experience playing until 2 o'clock in the morning, and just being open to the experience and let the silence and the energy of the moment direct us into which way we were going. And that's what took me to those magic moments in Hawaii.
What do you find happens in that moment? What is the best way to express, not only for yourself, just this kind of shift in awareness and time, but as a group of people being in sync in those moments where maybe it's not in sync and then all of a sudden everything comes together again? What does that feel like to you? How would you describe what's happening within a drum circle that when people just really let go?
Well, we let go of the expectations. We are open to what is happening in the moment. During that training, Arthur explains to us to let go, to keep it simple. Ego, that goes out the window. You're open to the process. You're listening. It's a conversation. He lets us know it's a conversation amongst the instruments in the circle. And we're listening to that conversation, and we're keeping that conversation going. And at times in conversations, there's silence. And the silence is fine. It's okay to have that silence. And the energy shifts, and you go with the energy, you go with the listening, and you're open to what takes place.
So that training was a big shift for you. That's right. You went to that training to kind of see, is this what I want to do? And it sounds like, yes, that was what you wanted to do. What happened after that training with that decision that you really wanted to facilitate drum circles? What was the next step for you?
The next step for me was to go back to my community and start facilitating community drumming circles. And I've always, there at the training, there's a Yahoo group of facilitators or people that are interested in facilitating, music therapists and different other therapists. So there is a reference point in which we can tap into people that are already facilitating if we had any questions. And I've tapped into that group many of times. So when I went back home, just started facilitating the circles. And before I left, there's a mentor program which people go back to teach the new folks that are going to be coming to the next camp. And I was asking Arthur about that, and he laughed at me. He said, wait, just make it through this one, which was my first time. But I knew deep inside that I wanted to mentor other people in drum circle facilitation. And that's what happened. I went home. I did the community drumming circles, bought some drums, put out on Craigslist if anybody has any percussion instruments sitting in the corner gathering dust. If you would like to donate, I applied for some grants, got some money to buy drums, and returned the next year as a mentor.
What kind of groups, what kind of community events were you doing during that time when you first started facilitating?
I was basically facilitating the drumming circles out of the spiritual center that I was attending because it was a free space, which, funds. It's very important to have a place that supports what you're doing. And that's where I was doing the drumming circles out of the spiritual center. And if there was birthday celebrations, weddings, I've done those too, and a celebration of life drumming circle. And it's endless. And what came up, and if I had the time, then I would put it out there on Facebook or put flyers up around town saying we're having a community drumming circle and inviting whoever in the community wanted to attend.
Do you find that when you lead drum circles, or perhaps within your training, it has a structure, perhaps it's intentional drumming, there's really a purpose behind the rhythm that started for a particular circle, or is it more just freedom, or a little bit of both?
There is a structure because you're going in because you have some people that have never touched an instrument before. So it's getting people to know the instrument that they're playing and to be able to take that playing of an instrument for the group to listen together, to keep the conversation going, and to let ego, if that comes into play, or lack of not being, if they're not sure of what they're doing, to empower the group that what they put into the group, that it's fine, that their uniqueness is what makes the circle. And each circle is different because everybody brings something different to the circle.
Yeah, I think that's what is so motivating and inspiring about drum circles is there is such individuality, but then how everyone comes together, right? There's the individuality, but there's this togetherness that it creates is very empowering. So where did other instruments come along? I met you at the Gong Summit, so I know that eventually you were drawn to gongs. How did that happen?
It happened. When I was playing in the music department, our kit drummer, he was phenomenal on the cymbals. And I ended up buying some of his cymbals, which were smaller gongs. And that's how I first started getting my gongs. But when I was attending the Drum Circle Facilitators Guild conference, at the end of our training, Arthur had made these chimes in which they're like metal tubes, and there's a mallet in which you would hit it with the mallet, and it would make they're all different notes, and they would make these beautiful harmonic sounds. And they called it Rhythm Church. So he would start off having soft percussion, shakers, wood blocks, and we would all just start keeping time with those instruments. And one by one, he would hand different people the chime bars. And at the end, everyone had a chime bar, except there were a few people that had eggs that were keeping the time. And at the end of that, I was so full. I felt that I was just so full. And it was so much to take in with all of the chimes, the sound of the vibration of those chimes. And I think those two things planted the seed for me with the gongs. So a few years later, I had gone to St. Louis to visit a friend who said, okay, we're going to go to a sound bath. Okay. I've never heard of a sound bath before. I feel that I'm an adventurous person. I'm game for new things. And we went to the sound bath, which was at a yoga studio. And we started doing yoga, and I'm thinking, okay, I didn't know we were coming here for this. But once we were done, the facilitator said, go ahead, get yourselves comfortable, relax. And I laid down, and it was the first tap of the gong that it just sucked me right in. And that was the beginning. That was the very beginning.
What was it about the sound of the gong? What did it do to your awareness at that time?
I had never heard a sound like that. And it kept going. The resonance just kept going, and I was hearing so many different things each time that she tapped a gong that I had never heard before. And I wanted to know more.
Did you find that it perhaps was a different texture, or did it actually do something different to you than the drums had for so long?
It was different. I didn't really go away feeling any different than I came in, because I was trying to watch her, what she was doing, these different sounds that I was hearing. So I wasn't really totally into the moment because I was more watching her. And then when it was done, I went up to her to ask, well, how did you get into this? Where did you get your training? I want to know more. And she told me that about the training. So again, I went home, I Googled Crown of Eternity, and this was in March. And then that October, I was in North Carolina for my Module 1 with Mike and Galena.
So it seems that through sound, you're just on this journey of learning and immersion and following Following where sound takes you.
Yes, and it's like a progression. There was no accident. There was no accident of me moving to Alaska, finding the spiritual center where I started playing percussion, and from there finding the drumming and becoming a drum circle facilitator, listening to bringing music together, my awareness of listening, of my awareness of people in the group, of sound, of listening, and then going into the gongs and facilitating that. It's been a progression.
So did that shift right away after that gong training? When you went home, along with the drum circles, you were offering gong meditations as well?
Let's see what happened. After I left Mike's, I got as much reading material because he gives us a list of books to read. So I started reading, and also he said that you have to do a one-on-one session or two-on-one for at least 100 people. Okay. So I bought a massage table, and at my spiritual center, and tapping into friends, I said, I'm doing my practicum. I need bodies to do these one-on-one sound or two-on-one sound sessions. And I started doing that. And there's a intake form that people fill out before and after, and reading those and making sure that I'm on track with what I'm doing and getting the feedback from my volunteers while I'm doing this process.
What did you learn from that? I mean, I found in my own case studies and kind of practicum is where I developed the most. I mean, just getting feedback from people alone was really a learning experience. Were there any aha moments from all that practicing?
There was a woman who had a brain injury, and when the gong was loud, she felt that it was very, very abrupt, very aggressive. That part she did not like. But other people, when they hear the loud parts of the gong, it's something that they want more of, or they feel something that is just on the verge, or they want more of it. So I get it's, each person, it's different in what they experience. And I've learned also that the quieter sounds are, they're more calming, and people like those. But it's the really loud sounds of the gong that really people, they react to that. Some people, it just depends on, that woman had a brain injury, whereas other people, they experience something different.
How do you adjust for that in, one-on-one sessions? You can really personalize the session, but then when you have a group of 20 people in the room, do you get a sense, or do you have kind of a formula what you might do in the gong bath, or is it more intuitive?
It's both.
Yeah.
When I bring people, when they settle in, I do a guided meditation. And I let them know when they hear the really intense sounds, the sounds that their bodies are reacting to breathe. The guided meditation talks a lot about breathing, connecting to the breath. And I give them the example that when people are scared or they're startled or something happens, they hold their breath. And therefore that trauma, that experience stays with them. But when you breathe through that, you're moving that energy. You're letting it go. And I really stress the breath in the beginning of the sound baths. And I had a woman come up to me at the end. She was saying, well, several have over different sound baths that breathing really helped them, and they were glad that I had said that.
Yeah.
So therefore, I know that that's a key element to keep on letting people know to breathe through those times.
Right. And that it's okay to feel that tension, constriction,
Yes.
just to allow that and breathe through it. Yeah, that's a really good point. Mm.
And I also let them know that if they feel the need to leave the room, that they can.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes people, they might feel, well, I don't want to disturb the person next to me, but I would rather them be comfortable and at ease with the experience than sitting there and just being torn up inside because they feel that they have to stay.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think it's important to remind people of those, if they need to get up and move, or they don't need to be completely still and rigid. In fact, they shouldn't be,
Right.
whatever their body tells them, to follow that. Yeah. Mm. So you're currently doing drum circles? Has that shifted at all as far as where you're doing them, where you're offering them, and in conjunction with these sound meditations and gong baths? How has that shifted over your time?
My drum circles, I have started to take the summers off to have a break. And if people contact me, they would say that they have a certain event or they want to get together and drum, then I'll get together and we can drum. And the sound baths, I figured that I would stop doing those also, facilitating them in the summer, because here in Alaska with our long winters, no one wants to be indoors.
Right.
But people, they keep signing up. They keep signing up. So I said, if the people keep signing up, then I will do the sound baths. And that's what's been happening. The drumming, in the summer, I take a break, and the sound baths, they're continuing.
Continue. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Oh, another thing, one of my drumming colleagues has these set of small gongs. They're pentatonic gongs.
Mm-hmm.
And I ordered, I think it's a set of 12. So at the end of my drumming circles, I started incorporating those, and it brings down the energy from the drumming, the high intense drumming. The gongs just bring down the energy, and people are mellower when they leave the drumming circles now. And it's really enlightening to see this, and how I can bring the gong into the drumming without bringing the big gongs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The drums can bring such energy, so very energizing, but at the same time it can be extremely meditative. And the gongs, they shift. I mean, they can do the same thing, but just in a totally different way. It's amazing how each instrument you resonate with differently.
Yes.
Well, how about you personally? Has music, sound always been spiritual for you? How has it been powerful in your own life, perhaps when you aren't offering it to other people, when you aren't leading as a facilitator? Do you play drums for yourself, for example, or gongs?
I do. I have several drums that I'll bring out sometimes and play. I have a Shruti box, and I'll just sit and listen to that and hum, do some toning with that. And it's another form of meditation for me. I'll take the gong and start droning and just feel that the vibration coming off the gong, and start playing around with different ways in which I can try to have that sound extend more and more each time, and to see how slow I can go, which is more, for me, is a different form of meditation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And true with and also with my meditation, it's given me more of an awareness, which it's never the same.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps going deeper and deeper.
Mm. And the sound facilitates that limitlessness, really.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And also sitting in the quiet,
Mm-hmm.
being open to the universe and just expanding.
Mm. Yeah, I think a lot of people say they have a hard time with meditating, but if they can start with a focus on just sound, maybe it's just the sounds around them, and whenever they're distracted, they just bring themselves back to sounds. That can bring them deeper and deeper. It is a point of focus,
Mm-hmm.
but it really is a shift in awareness into deeper silence. Mm. So you've talked about this progression from the drums to the gongs. I think I was reading that you were awarded a Rasmussen Foundation Award. When did that happen, and what did that help you do with the project award?
It helped me. I was awarded the Rasmussen Foundation grant in 2017, and it, unfortunately, here you had people look for either initials behind the name
Mm-hmm.
or some piece of paper. So for myself, it gave me recognition, because
Mm-hmm.
Rasmussen Foundation here is, if you've got awarded a grant, you must know what you're doing.
Right.
And so it gave me recognition that I'm a true artist.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when I had went to a workshop that they had for the awardees, they were saying, one of the guys that had reviewed my application was saying that they kept watching my video over and over, because I had submitted a video of me playing the gong, like a 2 to 3 minute, well, it was a 5-minute clip, because they had never seen anything like that before. So he was saying that they were watching it over and over and over. And I was like, good. I have their interest.
That's great.
So, yeah, it gave me recognition and opened up many doors. I was able to go to Mike's second Module 2 training. I went to Sage Academy and had a Gong camp. I attended a Gong camp with Don, learned about how he approaches Gong playing and the therapeutic aspect of gongs, and to be able to study further with sound. And this year, you have to wait 2 years after you were awarded. I'm going to be applying for a fellowship, in which I plan to go to Mitch's, what is this, the sound?
The theology one?
The theology, yes.
Right, sonic theology,
yes.
right.
Yes, yeah, the science of sound therapy. Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And it continues.
And to study,
yeah.
and study more.
Yes. It's, once you find that passion, that inspiration, I mean, the rabbit holes you go down can be pretty amazing which direction it takes you, but it's just, once you find it, it's really, really blossoms and is so inspiring. And you just want to keep finding other people that share that, and feeding yourself with more and more different approaches. And it just takes you deeper and deeper.
Because when I attended the Module 1 with Mike, I heard 1 and 2, I heard Mitch, and people were saying Mitch. Okay. never heard of Mitch.
Right.
All right. And after I had finished the Gong camp with Don, that was, I think it was in September
Mm-hmm.
of 17. I had never heard of a Gong puja. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, I can do that. So I
Mm-hmm.
came back, and the new year I ran six sessions of Gong pujas, and it was a fundraiser for our local aides, in which they have food and different education for the folks that are experiencing that have AIDS, and every session was sold out.
Oh,
Because it was
wow.
free, and people, some people donated cash, some people donated food, and just continuing doing one or two sound baths a month. And Mike called me. Well, we were emailing, and he said, July, keep the
Mm-hmm.
first week of July open.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't ask him why. I just, okay, Mike said to keep it open, I'll keep it open.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Gong Summit was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was life changing, and extending my family even more. Not only do I have a drumming family, but now I have some Gong folks to add to
Right.
my family also.
Right. And I don't think any of us really knew what to expect, but it was
Right.
far beyond any of our expectations.
Yes.
Just the energy that was created there.
Mhm.
Well, and then later this year, I think you said you're just about to start your mindfulness studies. Can you tell us about what that is and what you're doing next?
Well, I've been meditating for over 15 years, almost 20, and I'm always looking for ways of taking my self-work, my practice deeper. And the mindfulness, a friend of mine had attended, she's a mindfulness instructor here in Anchorage. And it's something that I thought, wow, this could take me to another level, and also bring about another practice, because when you're doing the same thing over and over, it's time to change things up.
Mm-hmm.
And it came around that the teacher training was going to be happening, and I thought, I'll apply. So I applied and got accepted. And my focus is outreach, the community. And I've noticed that here, certain areas, they offer mindfulness, but not for our children at risk, people over in the underserved communities, nothing. And with this training, I'll be able to focus on the children at risk, adults that are in the prison setting, and in the underserved communities. And I've already made connections with having a mindfulness group at one of the libraries that's in the underserved population area. And I have a few people that work at the juvenile lockup that I'll be able to go there and teach mindfulness with the young folks there. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. I guess I put the cart before the horse with some of it, but some of it really needed to be, well, it would be good to have those things in place so
Right.
that when I'm done, I can hit the gate running.
Mm-hmm. How long of a program is that?
It's a 300-hour program.
Right.
So in September, I'll go for a week-long silent meditation retreat. And then October through April, we're doing online courses and Zoom meetings. And then in May, I go back for another week-long retreat. And then it's done.
That's really exciting.
Yes. And I plan on bringing the gongs into this and the drums. So it's still, the progression is still happening.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's all connected. That's really inspiring. And I mean, it's just endless, the people that you can bring this to and assist with in your community. So that's really your current projects, your current studies coming up. Is there anything else that you're really excited about that's coming up on your
I'm going to be
calendar?
applying for the fellowship.
Right.
And I'm looking to do more collaborative events. In May, I had an event called the Spring Cleanse, in which I had a violinist open up the sound bath. And then I came in after her with the gongs. And the room, it was packed.
Wow.
To be able to bring the strings and the gongs together, it was awesome. And I'm looking to do some more collaborative events. And I'm on the soundboard for the next Gong Summit that's happening. That's very exciting.
Yes.
To be able to be of service to my community.
Yeah.
And looking for other ways to bring sound into my community here in Anchorage.
I think that most of us that are not on the sounding board are on pins and needles waiting to find out where the next one is and put it on the calendar and all that. So there's already so much excitement for all the future opportunities that are coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, I have two more. There's going to be an International Association of Women Police Conference that's going to be happening here. And I've offered to do sound one-on-one sessions if people are interested, and also do sound baths on the premises.
Great.
And I haven't heard back. I just emailed them yesterday because I was talking to another colleague that's part of the volunteer committee, because she was saying that they reached out to some of the yoga studios in the area and no one's contacted them. And I'm like, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can offer this service.
Oh, that's great.
And I've also been in contact with the social worker at the oncology department here at one of the hospitals to bring the gong to the cancer patients.
Yeah. So
those two are projects on the horizon that I'm waiting to hear back on, and it's amazing.
It's all unfolding and manifesting and probably keeping you very busy, but it doesn't feel like that when you love it so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's see. Is there anything about your learning, your immersion, your background that we've left out? I mean, did you have musical experience when you were a kid?
I was in band in elementary school, but I was only playing drums by listening because I didn't learn how to read music. And it wasn't really a good experience. But that listening to what people were playing was something that then I didn't understand what I understand now, that I can be in a circle playing music with people and listening, and it's fine not to know how to read music. And that's what, offering the community drumming circles, that anyone, regardless of musical experience or not, can be a part of a community playing music, connecting, creating, and being one.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. It's not how fast can you read the dots on a piece of paper, the sheet music, right?
Right.
That isn't talent in itself, and all that technique can be really important for people going into music. But gosh, I think that's kind of persuaded some people not to play or not to dive in because of this fear. But like you said, anybody can play. Right. And in fact, some of our great musicians don't even rely on sheet music. Maybe they didn't initially, but just being able to tune in and listen and be one with the sounds is where that power comes from.
Mm. And I went to a training out at Joshua Tree with Christine Stevens called Music Medicine. And that was amazing. Part of our training, she was saying how you can take the flute and play it to the heart. So my hand went right up really fast. I'm like, I'd like to try it because I've never experienced that before. I love the flute, the lower noted flutes.
Right.
And so I wanted to experience. So I stood up, she came over and started playing, and I have no clue. Out of nowhere, tears were streaming down my face. So she had one of the participants, somebody stand to my side and someone stand behind me to hold the space for me while I was going through whatever was happening. And I went back the next year, and we were playing outside out at Joshua Tree at the park, and I had a hummingbird come over, and it was just like welcoming me to the park. Yeah, it was so beautiful. And with the music medicine, we were using some of the indigenous ways of incorporating the elements, acknowledging the directions. And I learned so much with Christine doing the music medicine that I'm going to be doing it here in Anchorage, is just finding the right space and the title for the program to get the participants to come in.
That's beautiful. Oh, that's great.
Because music is medicine.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yes.
And we are the medicine. We all are.
Yes, we are.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure. Thank you.
Well, what's a good way? Do you have a website or a blog? What's a good way for people to follow your journey with all these developments and studies you have going on?
I have a Facebook page for my drumming, which is Anchorage Community Drumming, and a Facebook page for the sound baths, which is Vibrational Sounds. And I'm currently working on my website.
Okay. Great.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you. I really appreciate your frequency that you emit is very inspiring and soft and gentle, yet really powerful. And I just appreciate you.
No, thank you. Yeah. And it was a pleasure meeting you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Yes, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you down the road.
Yes, definitely.
Great. All right, well, thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You as well.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Sounds Heal Podcast. You can keep up to date with what's coming up next at soundshealstudio.com, on Facebook at Sounds Heal Studio, and on YouTube you can listen to previous podcasts, sound meditations, and other music on my YouTube channel, Natalie Brown Sounds Heal Studio. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a wonderful day. Be well and stay tuned.